So I wanted to talk about a feature that we're about to add to ProdPlan, which is a production scheduling, a free production scheduling application for manufacturing plants. Reach out to me if you're interested in being a beta tester or getting a demo or anything like that. So one thing we're about to add, a feature and a consideration we're about to add, I think is going to be real exciting for especially operations, is this idea of holding tanks. And it kind of is highlighted in this example right here. We have scheduled 6 orders, and we've generated a schedule, and this is filling all 6 orders, all 432,000 pieces over 5.3 days. So here's your key performance indicators of that schedule. But now let's look at this actual schedule down here in this Gantt chart. I want to focus on this particular part right here. Here's what I want to look at. So this is tank 23, and here's the lines, line 1, line 2, and line 3. So you batch process, you batch on your tanks, and you fill in your lines. So this job here is 1,000 gallons of product P. We're just using examples here. Product P, imagine it could be a shampoo, a conditioner, or any other type of product, right? Industrial or commercial, consumer grade product. But just think about this as a product, a certain product that's at 1,000 gallon tank mixing for a couple hours. And it gets done, and so the next step is you need to fill it into your containers. And then the tank can be used again for another different batch. So here's another job coming in. This time it's 812 gallons. It's not quite a full tank, but it still takes 2 hours because it's a batch process. So you have these back-to-back jobs. The tank starts. As soon as it stops, there's a setup time for the next job. Everything looks fine, but let's look at where these actually get filled. So where does this 1,000 gallons of product go? And we'll search. Let's look for job 8 down here in the lines. Obviously, red means the colors match the product. So whenever you see red, that means that's all one type of product. Purple's a different product. Blue's a different product. So it's consistent across the tanks and the lines. You know where things are batched, and you immediately see where they're filled. So here's the job 8. Now let's look. It's not here. That's 5. It's not here. 7. Okay, here it is. 8. So it takes all the way till the second shift of the next day. First shift of the next day. So it's filled in the second shift, and then it's batched here, and then it takes another 12 hours in order to get into, essentially, to the fill, which is fine because it's optimizing based off of, your batching, your combining orders, you're filling as fast as you can. Look, this is beautiful. Let me just say that for a second. Look how beautiful this is. Look at this line 1 right here. 1, 2, 3, 4 shifts in a row from start to finish. Multiple different jobs across the board, all lined up, ready to fill, and that line just runs. So that's great, but let's go back here. So where's the product at? Job 8, finished batching here, doesn't start filling to here. So where does that 1,000 gallons go? It can't stay there because, look, we got another job starting up. We got another job on that machine. So where's the product go? It's basically in limbo. And so there's 2 situations where this could be. It could be either it's pumped to a holding tank. So that's one option. And then that holding tank is then connected to the lines. Or the other option is if you don't have holding tanks, then you can't start this machine again until the product's been filled, totally filled. So how long does it take for 1,000 gallons to fill on this line? It takes 7 hours. So it starts here on the second shift, the first shift, and it ends on May 12th, and then it ends on, job 8. Yeah, it ends on the very end of the second shift on May 12th. So it starts it starts on May 12th, the second shift, and it ends at the end of the shift. So 7 hours of filling. It takes 7 hours to fill. 1,000 gallons. So if you had that line directly attached to that tank, then it's going to take you 7 hours to empty that tank. So you cannot start like this right here. This bit right here, this little gap right here would be 7 hours long, because you would have to empty the whole thing before you could start this next job up. So that's option one. That may be the answer for a lot of organizations that don't want to worry about holding tanks. Their capacity, their demand on their product is such that they don't need to have to worry about that, and having that team. Just imagine during that 7 hours, that tank, whoever is the compounders, the people that work in that, they're going to have to go somewhere else and do something else, because that whole work center is tied up. It's idle. It's idle for 7 hours. But typically, if you're going, you have as many orders as you can want to fill, and you just want to go as fast as you can. That's not going to be the best solution. But maybe for some organizations where the volume is such that they can do that, and it's the actual, maybe that is the best option. So that's option number one, is to have just fill directly from the tank, and then you have a new constraint that says you can't use the tank until it's empty. The other option is to have holding tanks. So the idea of you're going to pump out that product, and it's going to go to a holding tank, and then we can start up on a job 9. So there would be some sort of time it takes to pump all that product out, and then as soon as that process is done, then you're able to start another job on that work center. So what does that mean? And what does that translate to as far as features? Where is this going? So you see how we have just two types of products. I mean, two types of work centers. Right now, our work centers are tanks and lines. Tanks, batch, lines, fill. We'd have a third, and it would go right between tanks, holding. It would be tanks, holding tanks, and then lines. So mixing tanks, holding tanks, and then lines. So that's adding a whole nother work center and a whole nother. So then we would have, our Gantt chart would be tanks at the top. In the between, we'd have a number of holding tanks in the middle, which are that's another resource to manage. So you have X number of holding tanks, and you've designated them names, and you're tracking them, and this one picks up a batch from the mixing over here, and this one then picks up a batch over here, and then they're emptied from here on these lines here and here. The complexity is going to get a lot. It's going to get a lot more complex, but it's actually one of those things where a lot of times adding complexity to your software is a bad thing. But this is a situation where it's a great thing, because this is a huge challenge for manufacturing operations, is managing of those holding tanks. How many do you need? I mean, that was one of the first questions I was faced when I worked at a small manufacturer of cosmetics, is how many holding tanks would you even have? So right sizing that, so capital expenditure on that, but also how do you manage them? So which that's where this schedule comes in. It'll tell you exactly which holding tanks are going to have which product at which time, from which tank and going to which line, and then it's going to constrain the system, because then if you have a limited number of holding tanks, you may be waiting on holding tanks. So you may have batching. You want to right size your number of mixing to your holding to your line. So everything then needs to be another potential bottleneck there to manage, and another great reason to use a tool like this in order to help you figure all that out.